I grew up in a quiet suburban neighborhood where nothing ever really happened. The kind of place where people let their kids play outside until dark. And most families didn't even lock their doors at night. Our street was a loop, tucked into the back corner of town, surrounded by woods. Every house had a big backyard and a wide front lawn. And everyone knew each other by name. It was safe. Or at least, that's what we all believed. My parents were both teachers and had taken a weekend trip to a nearby town for a conference. I was 17 and they trusted me enough to leave me home alone. I didn't mind. I liked the solitude. I had snacks, my PlayStation, and the house all to myself. It was Saturday night when things started to feel off. It was around 10 p.m. I was in the living room playing a game when I noticed movement outside through the side window. At first, I figured it was just one of the neighbors walking their dog. But something about it made me pause. The figure wasn't walking along the sidewalk. It was standing still, half hidden behind the oak tree in our front yard. I stared for a moment, thinking maybe it was just my imagination. But no, there was definitely someone standing there. I couldn't make out their face, but I could tell it was a man. He didn't move. He didn't say anything. He was just watching. After a few seconds, I got up and moved closer to the window, trying to get a better look. That's when he stepped back into the shadows and vanished from view. I didn't want to overreact. So I told myself it was probably a random guy passing through. Maybe someone who got lost. Still, I locked the front door and checked the windows just in case. I went back to my game, but I couldn't focus. I kept glancing at the window, expecting to see him again. And an hour later, I did. This time he was standing at the edge of our driveway. He hadn't come any closer. He was just standing there near the curb, his body lit faintly by the street light. His face was still hidden by the hood of a dark jacket. And his hands were shoved in the pockets. Again, he didn't move. Just stared at the house. I got chills. This wasn't some lost traveler. He was watching my house. Watching me. I didn't know what to do. I didn't want to call 911 unless it was an emergency. But it felt like it was heading in that direction. I texted my parents, letting them know about the guy. They told me to call the non-emergency police line. I did, and the dispatcher said they'd send a patrol car to check the area. The man was still there when I hung up. But 5 minutes later, as the faint sound of sirens echoed in the distance, he turned and casually walked down the street, disappearing into the darkness. The officer who came by was friendly but clearly didn't think it was a big deal. He checked the area and said there was no sign of anyone, then told me to keep the doors locked and call if it happened again. I nodded and thanked him, feeling more alone than ever. I triple-checked every door and window before going to bed. I kept the bedroom lights off but cracked the blinds, just enough so I could see the front yard from my bed. I don't know why I did that. Maybe part of me wanted to see if he'd come back. He did. It was 2:17 a.m. when I opened my eyes. I wasn't sure why I woke up, but something felt wrong. My heart was racing. I looked toward the window. He was back, standing in the same spot at the edge of the driveway. But this time, he was closer. Closer than before. I watched him for what felt like forever. He didn't move. Not an inch. Just stood there, staring at the house. And then he raised his arm and pointed at my window. My stomach dropped. He was pointing right at me. Even in the darkness, with only the pale glow of the street lamp, I could tell. His head was tilted slightly up, locked on my second-floor bedroom window. On me. Frozen in bed, I didn't move a muscle. Was he trying to scare me? Was this some kind of prank? I slowly reached for my phone on the nightstand, trying not to break eye contact with the figure outside. My hand trembled as I dialed 911. The dispatcher picked up quickly. I whispered what was happening and gave them my address. She told me to stay calm, stay inside, and that officers were already on the way. I peeked out again. He was still there. Still pointing. Still unmoving. Until, without warning, he dropped his arm, turned around and walked away again, disappearing into the dark like before. Minutes later, the cops arrived. They searched the street, knocked on my neighbors' doors, even looked through the woods at the end of the block. But again, he was gone. No footprints, no trace, nothing. The officers stayed outside for a while, circling the block in their cruiser. One of them even offered to stay parked nearby for the rest of the night, which made me feel a little better. But I didn't sleep. Not a second. I sat in my room with the lights off, heart pounding, staring out the window in case he came back. He didn't. Not that night. But the next morning, I noticed something I hadn't seen before. There were scuff marks in the dirt beneath the oak tree out front. They weren't from me, I'd been inside the whole time. And they weren't from any animals. They were boot prints. Deep. As if someone had stood there a while. Then I noticed the side gate. It was unlatched. Now I was freaked out all over again. I walked around the side of the house and checked the backyard. Everything looked normal except for one thing. A chair from our patio set had been moved. It was sitting underneath one of the small windows. Near the back of the house, my bathroom window. That window is barely big enough for a person to squeeze through. But what disturbed me the most was that it was unlocked. I was sure I had locked every window the night before. Positive. I slammed it shut, locked it tight, and went through the whole house again, this time in the daylight. Every window. Every door. Every closet. Nothing seemed out of place. But I couldn't shake the feeling that I had missed something. That he had been closer than I realized. I didn't tell my parents everything. Just enough to worry them slightly, but not enough to ruin their trip. I said the police handled it and that everything was fine now. But it wasn't fine. Because that night, it escalated. It was around midnight when I heard it. A tapping. Not on the window. On the back door. 3 soft taps. I sat frozen on the couch in the living room, every light off, TV on mute. Tap. 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 I grabbed my phone and tiptoed to the kitchen, where I had a clear view of the back door. The small window in the top half was dark, but I could see a shape. A silhouette. He was standing right there on the other side of the door. This time, I didn't call 911 right away. I wanted to be sure. I waited, hoping he'd leave again like before. But instead, he tried the door handle. It rattled. He was trying to come in. I backed away slowly, heart hammering in my ears. I grabbed the biggest kitchen knife I could find and ran to my room, locking the door behind me. Then I called the cops again. They told me to stay on the line until officers arrived. I sat there, crouched beside my bed, phone in one hand, knife in the other, barely breathing. And then I heard it. A window sliding open. The sound of that window sliding open still haunts me. It came from the downstairs bathroom window, the one near the back of the house. The same one I had found unlocked earlier that day. I had locked it. I was sure of it. But somehow, some way, he had gotten it open. I held my breath. There were no footsteps. No doors creaking. Just silence. That kind of silence that feels heavy. Pressurized. Like the house was holding its breath along with me. The dispatcher was still on the line, trying to keep me calm. I whispered that I thought he had just broken in. She told me to stay quiet, stay hidden, and that officers were only minutes away. I could hear something now. Soft creaking. Floorboards. From downstairs. He was inside. My mind raced. I didn't have a lock on my bedroom door. Just a flimsy old knob that could be turned with a coin. If he came upstairs, there'd be nothing stopping him. And then, I heard it. The stairs. That deliberate, slow pressure of someone walking up them, one by one. Not fast. Not rushing. Just calm. Like he had all the time in the world. Like he knew I was alone. I turned off my phone flashlight and backed into the corner of my room. Crouching behind my bed with the knife clenched so tightly my fingers went numb. I had no plan. No escape. Just wait. Hope. And then, silence again. No more footsteps. No creak of the hallway floor. Just silence. I sat frozen for what felt like hours. The kind of fear that makes you feel cold from the inside out. Every sound felt amplified, my own breathing. The faint hum of the fridge downstairs. The occasional distant car passing outside. I was sure he was just outside my door. Listening. Waiting. Then, suddenly, banging. Pounding on the front door. Flashlights. Voices shouting, police. I didn't even hesitate. I ran downstairs barefoot, knife still in hand, and yanked open the front door. 3 officers stormed in with flashlights and weapons drawn. They searched the entire house, top to bottom. Every room. Every closet. Every possible hiding spot. Nothing. But one window, the bathroom one in the back, was found half open. Just like I had heard. They checked for signs of forced entry. There were none. No fingerprints. No footprints. No one. One of the officers looked me straight in the eyes and said, "Are you sure you didn't imagine it? There's no sign anyone was inside." But I knew he had been. I heard him. I felt him. That silence wasn't empty. It was full with him. The police stayed until sunrise. They made another report, said they'd increase patrols, and advised me to stay with a relative or friend until my parents came home. I agreed. When my parents got back the next day, I broke down and told them everything. They believed me. Especially after we found something they couldn't explain. Out in the backyard, underneath my bedroom window. My dad noticed a weird pattern in the grass. It looked like something had been placed there. Or someone had stood there for a long time. We checked the outdoor camera we had pointing toward the side fence. It wasn't motion activated, just recording constantly. But when we looked through the footage for the night it all happened, the screen went static around 2:15 a.m. and stayed that way for 13 minutes. When the footage resumed, the backyard was empty. No explanation. No malfunction. Just 13 full minutes of dead silence and snow. It's been years since that night. We moved not long after. I don't live in that town anymore. I don't walk outside alone at night. I check every window, every door, every lock twice. Because I know what it's like to be watched. I know what it's like to be hunted. And sometimes, in the dead of night, I still hear it. That soft, deliberate tapping. 3 times on the back door.